have you not? Okay. So let's finish this chapter quickly. Now, SEBI, as we all know, is Securities and Exchange Board of India. It is the watchdog governing the subject. It has the highest amount of powers for governing capital markets. Usually, SEBI has three major powers: protection of investors' interest, promoting the development and regulating the development of securities market. So these are the two major objectives for which SEBI was created. SEBI Act was enacted in the year 1992, and currently it has its headquarters in the city of Mumbai, and it also has other offices which are scattered across the country, like Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Kolkata, Guwahati, Bhubaneswar, New Delhi, etc. Now, as Securities Exchange Board is a board, it is usually going to come under the category of body corporate. So it has one chairman and 8 members. So the structure of SEBI is 1 plus 8. All of them are usually appointed on the recommendation of the central government. 2 of them are directly from ministries. One is from Ministry of Finance and another is Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which deals with Companies Act. So you have one chairman, 2 people from ministries, that is one from Ministry of Finance and one from Ministry of Corporate Affairs. You have one RBI member who is going to be nominated again by the central government, and 5 other members. 3 are whole-time and 2 are part-time members. This is how SEBI is structured in India. It is also SEBI's major function to not only govern and regulate the capital markets and securities market, but it also regulates stock exchanges. So SEBI has many regulatory functions. So if you look at the powers and functions of SEBI, you have number 1, stock exchange regulation, intermediaries regulation. Intermediaries we have discussed is of 2 types: primary and secondary market intermediaries. SEBI also regulates other intermediaries like depository participants, credit rating agencies, NSDL and CDSL, etc. SEBI also regulates funds like VCF, CIS, mutual fund, AIFs, etc., which we saw under the definition of QIB. So regulating wise, you can say the main function of SEBI is to regulate entities. The second function is to register these entities. The third function is to prohibit bad and harmful activities that will result in the protection given to the investors to reduce. So it will prohibit such activities that will not help it achieving its objective of protection of investors' interests. So it also prohibits any non-compliance regarding any of its regulations. In addition to this, under regulation, it regulates not only the securities market, it regulates stock exchange, it regulates intermediaries, it regulates the takeover code, and it also regulates the depositories and depository participants. For doing all of this, it can levy fees and charges from the stock market, from the intermediaries, and from the depository and depository participants as well as companies. And SEBI will use that fees to conduct research and improve the capital markets. So the main function of SEBI you can categorize into majorly 3: regulation powers, registration powers, and prohibition powers. SEBI also has the same powers as that of a civil court. In JIGL, you will learn what are some of the powers of the civil court. Majority of them are covered here. The 4 major powers are: just like a court, it can ask for evidence and production of documents and books of accounts. It can summon people and enforce their attendance. So it can ask for people to appear as witness, and it can even examine them as witnesses. And it can also go for inspection of books and important documents, just like any other court can. So just like a civil court, SEBI can discover and produce documents, summon and enforce attendance, inspect books and documents, and examine witnesses and these documents. SEBI also has the power to issue orders and directions. So you can call this as the fourth power, the power to issue directions. And it can direct the same people. It can direct stock exchange, intermediaries, depository participants, as well as companies. And these entities should follow the orders of SEBI. Whenever SEBI asks you to do something, you have to ensure that you follow its directions. Also, it is important to note that SEBI as an entity governs all the stock exchanges. So it is important for SEBI to ensure that it consistently engages with these intermediaries from time to time and ensures that both the stock exchange and its intermediaries are functioning properly. SEBI also has the power to conduct investigations. So the fifth power of SEBI, inspection, investigation, and issuing of orders. That is another additional power of SEBI. It can inspect documents, people, witnesses, and evidences. It can also investigate people, documents, witness, and evidences, and it can issue orders for their production. During inspection, if it feels that there is sufficient doubt or enough matters are connected in such a way that SEBI might feel that there is some sort of non-compliance going on. So in that case, it can order for investigations. Not only can it order investigation against all these entities, that is stock exchange, depository participants, companies, as well as intermediaries, it can also keep custody of this books of accounts and documents that they collect during the investigation. So the next power is search, seizure, and confiscation. We can call that as SSC. So it can regulate all these entities, it can register all these entities, it can prohibit insider trading and unfair trade practices, it can issue directions and regulations, it can inspect, investigate, and issue orders regarding these five entities, and it can search, seize, and confiscate documents and records from these five entities. So that is another power of SEBI. Whenever SEBI passes an order, it has to be followed by these entities. And if you are not happy with the order, you can always go to appeal to the Securities Appellate Tribunal. So the review and appeal mechanism works like this. Usually, if you're an investor, you go to scores. But if you're a company or an intermediary or a stock exchange, then you directly complain to SEBI. Scores is a website that is run by SEBI. It is called as SEBI Complaints Redressal System. So it's an online website that works 24/7. Only investors can complain against companies and intermediaries to SEBI. And SEBI can then ask them to do their job properly after receiving this complaint. But a company, intermediary, or stock exchange has a complaint, they have to directly complain to SEBI. Any order that is passed by SEBI against the company, intermediary, or stock exchange, or an investor, if they are dissatisfied, they can always go for appeal to SAT, which is the Securities Appellate Tribunal, and from there you can appeal to Supreme Court. Just as we discussed, registration is also an important power of SEBI. It can register all the primary as well as secondary market intermediaries that we have seen in the first two chapters. They will usually ask you to fill what is called as a Form A. If you fill this form A and pay the fees required for registration, SEBI will usually register you and they will give you a chance to work as an intermediary under this particular act. SEBI also prohibits insider trading, UTP and FTP. So we have seen those under the powers already. Whenever SEBI feels that there is an unfair trade practice, fraudulent trade practice or insider trading, at that point of time, SEBI usually will pass an order to impose penalty, to collect documents or to collect any other evidences as required. So all the prohibitions are against insider trading, FTP, UTP or any other deceptive trade practice called DTP. Make sure that you always quote this in all your exams whenever you're writing anything regarding the powers of SEBI. So if any entity is engaged in insider trading, has information regarding any of these unfair trade practices, in such case they will impose these penalties. Above SEBI is the central government. So central government allocates all the funds for SEBI to function, and SEBI has also been given what is called as a general fund, where it will collect all the fees and charges and it will deposit the same, and that is under the control of the central government itself. The SEBI chairman's salary and member salary and allowances are paid from this funds itself. So this financing activities regarding the functioning of SEBI, that is going to be taken care by the central government. Usually whenever SEBI imposes any fine or penalty, the penalty is minimum 1 lakh per day, which can extend up to rupees 1 crore, whichever is less. You will notice this everywhere. For most of the failures, the punishment is the same. Failure to furnish document, failure to file returns, failure to maintain books of accounts, failure to obtain registration, failure to comply with SEBI laws and terms and conditions, failure to apply for listing, failure by funds, CIS and mutual funds, failure by any CIS with respect to money collected. For everything literally, there are two major types of penalties. One is for simple offences, one is for serious offences. For simple offences, always the penalty is the same, 1 lakh per day, which can extend up to 1. You can quote this whenever you are in doubt. But if it's a serious offence means insider trading, FTP, UTP, etc. For this, there are different fines and penalties. I will show you the same. Your textbook has the updated version regarding this. Minimum penalty remains the same. All failures, all fund-related failures and penalties always are going to be minimum 1 lakh rupees. So there are three aspects here. Minimum 1 lakh, extends up to 1 lakh per day, and maximum of 1 crore for literally almost all the penalties. If it's a serious offense, then 3 times the amount of profit made will be the penalty, whether it is by a fund or whether it is by any other entity. If it is not a serious offense, always you will notice the same penalties everywhere. Minimum 1 lakh, extends up to 1 lakh per day, and maximum 1 crore. Now serious offenses start with insider trading. As I said, penalty is going to be 3 times the profit made or 25 crores, whichever is higher. The same penalty will be repeated again for takeover code violation, 25 crores or 3 times the profit made, but they have added a minimum penalty of 10 lakh. For takeover code, 5 lakh. For FTP, UTP, and 1 lakh for destruction of database. If you destroy database also, again the fine will extend up to 3 times the profit made or 10 crore rupees in this specific case. So insider trading, no minimum fine, directly 25 crores or 3 times the profit made. Takeover code, minimum 10 lakh, extends up to 25 crores or 3 times of profit made, whichever is higher. FTP, UTP, fraudulent or unfair trade practices, minimum 5 lakh, can extend up to 25 crore or 3 times the profit made, whichever is higher. Everywhere else, it only extended up to 1 crore. That is why we categorize this as serious offenses. And that pretty much is what the chapter all about. So whenever you get into SEBI's proceedings, usually they are going to be calling some sort of hearing, but you can also go for civil proceedings under SEBI, wherein you can go for settlement. Settlement is where you don't want to face any imprisonment and you go for automatic removal of imprisonment. So SEBI can consider this, but if you go for settlement, you have to be ready to pay the maximum fine that SEBI will impose after considering your case, and you also cannot go for appeal. So those are the 2 factors that you have to keep in mind. Penalties, there are simple penalties and then there are serious penalties. Simple penalties is for simple failures, which can be 1 lakh rupees per day and can extend up to rupees 1 crore. For insider trading, takeover code violation, FTP and UTP, they are considered serious offenses. So the penalty is going to be 3 times the profits made or 25 crores, whichever is higher. And they will have minimum amounts separately for each of these cases. Now, if you want to go for appeal, you cannot go for settlement. Settlement is very straightforward. You will pay whatever fine they are asking you to pay so that you can avoid imprisonment, and you cannot also not go for appeal. This is what is settlement. You have to separately file for a settlement and adjudication petition if you are going to settlement of dispute. But if you don't want to settle and if you are still not happy with the order of SEBI, then you can go for appeal with SAT. SAT consists of 3 officers, 1 presiding officer and 2 members. 1 is a judicial member and 1 is a technical member. This bench will usually consist of 1 or more than 1 judicial members and 1 or more than 1 technical members. Usually it is 3 members minimum, but it can go up to 2 or more judicial or technical members on a case-to-case basis. So it can go up to 5-member bench also. So minimum 3-member, maximum 5-member bench for SAT. Qualification to become presiding officer or judicial member is very straightforward. You have to be a Supreme Court judge or Chief Justice of High Court. If you are not a Supreme Court judge or Chief Justice of High Court, you could be a High Court judge for 7 years and having 7 years experience. If you want to be a presiding officer and if you want to be a judicial member, then you need to be a High Court judge at least for 5 years. So SAT is the place where you go for appeal on SEBI orders. SAT consists of 3 people, 1 presiding officer, 1 judicial member and 1 technical member minimum, which can extend up to 2. Presiding officer and judicial member have same qualifications: Supreme Court judge, Chief Justice of High Court, or a High Court judge with 7 years or 5 years experience. Technical member need to have 15 years experience in any commerce field or any field related to capital markets. If you have 15 years experience, you can become a technical member. Unless you are a judge, you cannot become a judicial member or presiding officer. And this is where you go for appeal against SEBI orders All these officers have 5-year tenure, just like any other authority under any other subject. Competition Appellate Tribunal also under EBCL has a similar composition. All officers of government usually work for 5 years. Judicial and technical members usually retire by 70 years of age, which is the same age applicable for the chairman also. Now, who appoints these judicial and technical members? Usually, the presiding officer and judicial members are appointed by the Chief Justice of India after consulting with the central government. If you want to go for appeal for SAT, you only have 45 days. So SEBI to SAT, SEBI has 1 plus 8 members, SAT has 1 plus 2 members, and then Supreme Court has benches. SEBI to SAT appeal, 45 days time. SAT to Supreme Court appeal is 60 days time. SAT to Supreme Court appeal, you can only go for any question of law. You cannot question facts with the Supreme Court. And before going to SAT or Supreme Court, you have to deposit the fine that was levied by SEBI previously. High Court judge, 7 years or 5 years experience, or you can be Chief Justice of High Court, or you can be a Supreme Court judge also. Then for all SEBI orders, you can also go for any adjudicating officer orders that have been passed under this particular act. And it is the only authority that you can go for appeal on. If you don't want to go for appeal and you want to settle the dispute, you can go for settlement proceedings separately. And you have to file an application to SEBI only directly for these settlement proceedings. If for some reason you are not able to pay the fine or penalty, they can attach your property, they can attach your bank accounts, and they can even send you to prison for an additional period if you are not paying the minimum fines. The fines are, for simple offenses, what are the fines, guys? Do we remember what are the fines going to extend up to? What is the minimum amount?
1 lakh.
Minimum amount 1 lakh. What is the extended amount?
1 crore.
No, it is 1 lakh per day. And what is the max amount?
1
Max amount is
1 crore.
This is for all simple offenses: failure to give information, data, send returns on time, maintenance of records, etc. But if you do some sort of fraud or cheating, for example, UTP, FTP, insider trading, takeover code violation, then the fine is 3 times the profits made, or what is the amount there? What is the maximum penalty for serious offenses?
3 times.
Or 25 crores, whichever is higher, and they have the minimum amount. That minimum amount can be, for insider trading, there is no minimum amount. For FTP, UTP, 10 lakhs. For takeover code violation, FTP, UTP, 5 lakhs. Takeover code violation, 10 lakhs. So basically, this chapter is all about powers of SEBI, penalties, and appeal. In front of them, they can ask any document to appear in front of them. They can take evidences on affidavits. They can examine witnesses. They can review their own decisions. They can pass ex parte orders, which means they can pass orders in the absence of any party. Suppose one of the party doesn't come to the hearing, they can still pass an order. Such a order is called as ex parte order. They can also set aside any matter, and they can have any other power as may be prescribed under the Civil Procedure Code. So these 8 points you can write for 4 different subjects whenever they are asking you any judicial question or any question regarding powers of any authority. Every authority under every subject has the same 8 powers, which are common, and from act to act, some of the different powers will differ. Limitation Act is one of the acts that you will study, I think under EVCL. So SEBI or any of its authorities, when they pass any order, any other court cannot take up the matter. So all SLCM matters can only be taken by SEBI or any adjudicating officer of SEBI. No civil court, no criminal court can take up such matters. And all the offences are going to be divided mainly into two major categories: simple offences and serious offences. So apart from this, since more and more cases are coming under our subject, SEBI has talked to the central government and they have decided to establish special courts. Special court will be a single member bench, just like SAT is a 3-member bench minimum. Special court is a single member bench. It will have a single judge who would be appointed after consulting with the central government and Chief Justice of High Court. This single judge will be a sessions judge or an additional sessions judge qualification, and this single judge will help in resolving smaller matters that are concerned with our subject relating to securities law. So he also has all the powers of the civil court. Those 8 powers he also has. But you can go to special court if for some reason you are in an area where SEBI does not have any offices, and if you are in an area where SEBI is refusing to take up your complaint, then only you can go to these special courts. They are going to have equivalent powers which are similar to any sessions court under the criminal procedure code. So usually these entities will take up all the cases that SEBI can take up, but only when SEBI has not responded to your complaints or your petitions, then you can go to this special court. So all in all, to summarize, this chapter talks about SEBI and its powers. It also talks about appeals and judicial functions which are designated to SAT. And if you originally cannot file a petition with SEBI, then you can go to special court. Special court is a 1-member bench. SAT is a 3-member bench. The 3 people are presiding officer, judicial member, and technical member. Here it is a single judge who is a sessions or additional sessions judge qualification. Any judge who has this qualification can be appointed to the special court. SEBI has different types of powers. It has prohibition powers. It has registration powers. It has regulation powers. And it has other powers which we have discussed earlier. And if you don't follow any of the orders or requirements of any of these SEBI regulations, it will be considered a failure, and there will be 2 types of penalties that will be imposed on you: simple penalties for simple offences and serious penalties for serious offences. Also ensure that you remember the numbers for these failures and penalties, and that pretty much is what this chapter is all about. If you're an investor, you can directly not approach any of these authorities. You can directly go to Scores. Scores is an exclusive online portal which is established by SEBI only for investor complaints. If company has a problem, you go to SEBI. If intermediary has a problem, you go to SEBI again. If any of the market participants have any problem, they'll again go to SEBI again. Anybody other than an investor has a problem, you'll go to SEBI again. But if you're an investor, you might have problems with companies who are not paying you dividend on time, who are not giving you returns on time, who are not issuing share certificates on time, who are not processing your refunds on time, or you can have problems with intermediaries yourselves. So in that case, if you have not been given proper services, then you directly don't approach SEBI. You go to this website that is maintained by SEBI called as SEBI Complaints Redressal System, It has all the advantages of any online system. So it has 24/7 access, it is faster, it is cheaper, and it has less paperwork, so it is good for the environment. They will automatically generate ATRs or action taken reports. Based on when you file a complaint, you'll be given an acknowledgement number, and you can track the action taken by the companies and intermediaries from time to time. You can directly go to scores and file a complaint, and as soon as you file a complaint, within 30 days, the company or the intermediary should take action. If company doesn't take action, then SEBI will send it a reminder, within which again you get 30 more to take action again. But SEBI might impose fines and penalties if you don't take action within 30 days of an investor complaint. The website is sebi.gov.in, and these are the helpline numbers. You don't have to remember them. So how do we file a complaint? Go to the website, go to registration, register yourself, go to investor corner, submit some proof, ID and address proof, and then you will get a user ID and password. You can log in and file a complaint against any company or any intermediary. They also give you a review option. If company has satisfied your request and they have resolved your dispute, you can review and say you are satisfied with the response. If not, you can say you are unsatisfied, and you can escalate the same to the dealing officer of SEBI. So scores is the bottommost investor complaint system. From here, you get 30 days. Within 30 days, if they don't complain, SEBI itself will send a reminder. But between this time, if they have responded to your complaint, you can either say whether you are satisfied or not using the review option. Usually you get 15 days to submit a review, whether you are happy or not happy with the way your complaint was resolved. So usually complaints like security, information related complaints, any complaints relating to money not received, any complaints relating to refund or dividend, these are settled with scores. But if there is any complaint relating to delisted entity, any complaint relating to any pending matter with court, any RBI, IRDAI, PFRDAI, CCI related complaints, any Ministry of Corporate Affairs complaints, or any liquidated company complaints, they cannot be filed on scores. Scores only takes SLCM complaints, security law and capital markets. It doesn't take valuation, company law related matters, PF or insurance related matters, or any other matter not related to our subject. You cannot file a complaint in this particular website. So there are multiple ways in which you can resolve your disputes under this particular subject. You can directly go to SEBI, you can go to scores, or you can go to settlement, or you can go to special court. And this is what this chapter is all about. All right. Any questions or queries? They have a mobile app also, which you can download, but it's pretty much irrelevant at this point of time. Everybody knows that nobody goes to websites these days, so you can directly download the app and use the function. This is usually the timeline. You file a complaint, 30-day time is given. If no response is given in 30 days, SEBI will give an alert on the 31st day. Then another 30 days is given to them for resolving the complaint. Even after that, if no complaint is given or no complaint is resolved, then they will start imposing the fines that we have talked about. So first they will give notice to company and start imposing the fines. Then they will send notice to promoters. So after the 60th day, 61st day, they will give notice to company. 76th day, they will give notice to promoters. And 86th day, they will freeze the promoters' shareholdings. This is what is going to happen if you don't resolve the complaints that is being filed under scores. Even beyond this, if you're not resolving, then automatically you go into serious offences territory. Minimum value of the complaint SEBI will address. So if the value involved is more than 10 lakhs, then SEBI will directly take up the hearing. If not, they will send it to the stock exchange. So this is the sequence of events for resolution of disputes on scores. Okay. Now, despite all of this, if people are hesitant to go to any court or settlement, remember these are judicial authorities, SEBI or settlement or special court. These are all quasi-judicial authorities. What if you don't want to go to these authorities and you want to do informal resolution? Then you have what is called as informal guidance. There are two types of scenarios where informal guidance is taken. Whenever a company or an intermediary has a doubt or a clarification, then it can use this informal guidance scheme. They don't want to directly trouble SEBI. They just want their tip or advice. So whenever any company or any intermediary has any doubts or clarifications, they can use this scheme called as SEBI informal guidance scheme. Till now we were looking at complaints. Complaints is over, penalties is over, and powers are over. So that leaves us with, what if company has a problem or intermediaries have a problem? It's not necessary that only investors will have problems, right? If company has any doubts or clarification, they can use this informal guidance scheme. Based on their request, SEBI will give you two types of letters, no action letter or interpretative letter. No action letter means that you don't have to take any extra action. Whatever you are understanding, whatever regulation you are planning to follow, you are correct in your interpretation. Your doubt is pretty much invalid, and whatever clarifications or assumptions that you have made yourself, they are correct. But if the assumptions that you have made as a company or as an intermediary, if they are wrong, then they will give you an interpretive letter. They will give you specific advice using this circular. So if SEBI feels that you are right, no action letter will be given. If SEBI feels you are wrong, then they will give you interpretive letter. And using this, SEBI will respond to your doubts and clarifications if you are a company or if you are an acquirer under takeover code, or if you are a intermediary. For taking this facility, obviously SEBI is giving you advice. So you have to sometimes pay a fee. Fee is usually 5,000 rupees. But you cannot ask hypothetical questions. What if this happens tomorrow? Or what if I don't pay interest on time? Or what if you don't know the legal provisions? SEBI is not a teacher. SEBI will only clarify your doubts. So that doubt has to be genuine. It cannot be relating to any pending cases, and it cannot involve hypothetical situations. Only then SEBI will entertain your doubts. So that concludes your SEBI chapter. So important parts here are penalties, powers of civil court, those 8 points, settlement proceedings, SAT, special court, scores, and informal guidance. Okay. So, yeah, 4th chapter is done. Any questions before we log off for the day? Any queries? All right. I'll see you guys on Thursday then.